Right, hi guys, this is Walp from Gamers Class. Today I'm doing a video on 8 common mistakes offlane players at low MMR often make. Right, I'll jump straight into it.
If you like this kind of content, go to gamersguys.com. For just $10 a month, get your replays analyzed, watch masterclasses with pro players, join weekly coaching sessions, win prizes, and more with our Supreme Dota 2 members.
So first off, I'd say picking phase. If you're an offlaner, you are usually picking your hero in the second phase of the picking phase. So you see usually pos 5, pos 4, right? And then you have to pick with your carry. That's the usual sequence of events. What I would say is, generally when you're playing offlane, try to make sure your hero has some form of initiation, especially if your team does not have any initiation at all. Then it's very important you pick a hero that has some form of initiation. For instance, it could be a Tyrant with a Blink Ravage, right? It could be a Clockwork with who can just hookshot, right? It can be anything with some sort of initiation. Don't just pick some hero that just farms, like a Venomancer or something that just bullies the lane, but then at the end of the day you have no initiation to make any plays at all, right? Make sure you keep that in mind. Right, so next up would be not bringing enough regen to your lane, and also not starting with the correct items. This is very important. I feel like in low rank games, I see offlaners very often go like these weird item builds, like go like double bracer, like double gauntlet, and they'll go like a circlet, and they'll bring like one set of tangos to the lane, right? I feel like it's pretty bad, because as an offlaner, you're very much going to be contesting the enemy safe lane. You're going to be hitting them very often, right? So in turn, you're going to be hit a lot too. So it's good to have some form of regen. Plus, also go like the correct items at the start. Generally, on most strength heroes, I tend to like going this gauntlet into like 6 tangos and QB, and sometimes I'll go like a ring of protection depending on the lane. And then make sure you build into, this will go on to my next point, but anyways, make sure you build into like a straight bracer in the lane and like a stick. But I'll go on from there now. Okay, and the next thing I would say, very important for low rank offlaners, is to use their Courier way more often. I see people like a lot of times saving their goal up to like 1,000 before they buy items, right? I think that's very bad to do. It makes you very weak in lane compared to what you could actually be if you had spent your gold by using your Courier more often, right? So what I would say is, at the start, like as soon as you get enough gold for like a bracer, and maybe you need like an extra set of tangos, you send that as soon as possible, right? You send your Courier with your bracer and tangos, you send it to you. By the time the Courier gets back to base, then you'll be able to use it again, right? So by that time, you can maybe send yourself a magic stick. And I also talk about this raindrop item very often. In a lot of lanes, the raindrop is a very efficient item for this mana regen you get, and also it blocks a lot of damage. Let's use Sven as an example, right? Sven's stun does it's like the thing that grants him the most killing potential in the lane, because it does a lot of damage, right? But with raindrop, it will negate most of that damage, so it just puts you in a way safer position. This you can get at 3 minutes. Try not to forget about this item, it's very important. Try not to forget about a magic stick either. This item is super efficient, and it's very cheap for what it grants you. So try to, in almost every scenario, go stick and to go raindrop. I think these two items are very strong. There are situations where you shouldn't go raindrop. For instance, when they can burn the raindrops too easily. I'll use a silly example, but like when you're laning versus a Zeus, right? He's just gonna be able to burn your raindrops with his little arc lightnings all the time. So in those scenarios, try not to get it. And always like get boots nice and early. Like what I'm trying to say is, go items that make you as strong as possible, so you'll be strong enough to contest the enemy safe laner nice and early. Like you need to just be very strong, is what I'm trying to say. Right, on to the next point would be for offlaners in low rank especially, I see them very often missing like free CS, right? Like I'll see an offlaner have like 20 CS at like 7 minutes, and I just want to shake my head, because it's very bad. You need to treat every CS super very high priority. You need to make sure you can get every single CS you can possibly get. Sure, there are times where you're gonna miss a CS, it's inevitable, because I mean you're a human, right? You're gonna make mistakes, but try to keep it as low as possible. Especially like, for instance, let's look at this guy, right? You'll see he's pulling the creeps onto the range creep. right? He's getting this free deny. This is like the perfect thing you want to do as an offlaner, especially at the start when the enemy carries don't have a way of like securing this range creep. You always want to deny it, and if you have a way of securing the range creep, you always want to take that ability, right? Like Gush is a decent example, but mostly it'll be Anchor Smash. So I mean, let's use a different example. Let's use Mars, right? Mars can use a spear, so it's always good to be able to secure range creeps. So just do that. Point is, do not miss CS. Very important. Right. The other point is try to abuse creep aggro as often as possible. I'll use a silly example. So, for instance, you're laning versus a lane that's very hard. Let's not look at this lane. This is like a free lane, right? But let's use a bit of a harder lane. For instance, let's say you're like a Clockwork and you have like an Earthshaker, right? And you're laning versus like some Drow Venge that's constantly going to be clicking you, okay? What you want to do in that scenario is you want to just keep on pulling creep aggro away from the enemy hero so they can't hit you. And also you want to be abusing the fact that you can pull the lane. I feel like I see very often that offlaners, they tend to not think about pulling the lane very often. By pulling the lane, I mean literally sending your pulse 4 here to pull the wave either in front of your tower so you can last it here so they can't click you so much, or just behind the tower, right? You can do this very often. It's super simple to do. I don't want to show it in this video right now, but anyways, you go here and you just pull the creeps down. You can only pull creep aggro close to the tower. You need to remember that, so just think about that when you do this. Anyways, on to the next point. Alright, so another thing is, I see it very often that offlaners, they put too much emphasis on the actual lane, and they never think about this pull camp. I see it very often, like, allowing the pos 5 to get off a pull is in some circumstances okay, but it's never okay to let them stack this. I feel like you should always at least block the stack. You can do that by either telling your pos 4, like reminding him to come block it, or to just, you know, plant a ward here to just block this camp so they can't abuse the pull. Because every creep that gets denied here is massive towards your lane, because it's one creep you're not getting the gold for and you're not getting the experience to either. So try to think about these pull camps as much as you can, and also abuse your own pull camp. I see it very often that players like, alright, I'll use a broad example. So players will very often shove this lane, and on their side there'll be like 6 creeps, right? 6 radiant creeps, and it'll be pushing into the tower. And then what they'll do is they'll follow this guy into the tower and contest his last hit, which is fine. But you should always remember to, in those scenarios, to also pull the camp. So yeah, like you see this guy is doing here, he's pulling the camp, right? What this is gonna do, while this guy is gonna sit under the tower last hitting, these creeps will probably get denied. He'll probably get probably 2 denies from this camp because the shit's strong, right? And now you'll be able to get some deniers. Any creep you get to deny for free in the offlane is massive, because that's like 30 to 40 gold that the enemy safe laner is missing, and they're also missing the experience, right? It's massive. Try to keep in mind. Try to keep that in mind. So the next point I'm moving on towards is in low rank games, I see it very often that people will just tend to leave their lane and go to the jungle. Like maybe the lane is going badly, right? And they just decide to go to the jungle. I think that's a terrible move in almost all scenarios. Maybe if you're like an Enigma, you can do it because you can farm the jungle very efficiently. But in almost every other scenario, you should never just leave your lane at like 3 minutes and go to the jungle, come farm here. You should, in those scenarios where the lane is too hard for you, you should just go behind the tower and try to mess up creep equilibrium so you'll get close to your tower. Either you pull this down, right? Or you just take the creep aggro here and you run back and you stack it, and then you just TP away so you get a nice double wave. Try to think about that a bit more often, because it'll really help you a lot. Just do not go to the jungle is what I tell most people. This is not where you should be very early on, because you're giving up essentially an entire lane of experience and you're giving their carry free farm, right? It's just not a good thing to do. Alright, so the next thing I would say is not going the correct item build, okay? This is applicable for mid to late game, but very much for the mid game, because I see it very often that offlaners, they don't go this blink item often enough, especially in the low rank games. Like for instance, your hero will be the only hero that has any form of initiation. Like this game, it's like this Tide Hunter is gonna blink in and ravage, right? So it's very obvious that he needs to go blink, because his heroes can follow up on him ravaging. But I'll see for instance like people going like straight pipe and like phase boots and like Crimson Guard and just completely forego the blink, which is something I think you should really try to avoid. Try to keep in mind that as an offlaner, it's your job to be the initiator, to initiate for your team, right? Just try to keep that in mind. So try to go with the correct items. Anyways, that's it for the top 8 mistakes I think that offlane players make at low rank games. I hope you can fix those, and I hope it'll help you. Hopefully you can gain some MMR that way. Anyways, thank you for watching. That's gonna be it.